Hello and welcome to the Curated Beauty Podcast. I'm Jessica Christie, CEO of Beauty Culture Med Spa and the founder of the new functional and regenerative business, Cultured Wellness. From my start as a physician assistant to now not only being a practitioner but leading my own businesses, I've been on a unique journey through health, beauty, and entrepreneurship. Join us as we explore everything from skincare secrets to leadership lessons. Whether you're passionate about beauty or striving to balance life's challenges, this is your space to connect, learn, and shine. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Curated Beauty Podcast. It's Jessica Christie. Today, we're going to talk about something that many of you know about already. You know the concepts, you know the words, but we're really going to dive into the specifics. So we all have heard probably about the microbiome. I think a lot of people know that now we're associating the gut and the brain health, and we're seeing that the gut is responsible for about 70% of our overall immune system. And so if our gut isn't healthy, we are not healthy as a whole systemically. And so then it brings into play, what do we do about it? And I think that now a lot of people are beginning to know that we need to detoxify. And the whole concept of detox, I think that there are even so many of you listening to this podcast that have participated in either supplements or programs that you have done detox protocols. And there's ones that are easily and readily available online. There are local naturopath places that you can go, but there are a lot of limitations with detox programs. First of all, they're incredibly limiting in terms of being feasible with normal life. I think as I have experienced them, there's a lot of gastrointestinal upset. I myself have experienced that. Patients have experienced that. Close friends have experienced that. And when it's disruptive to your daily function, that is when you're not going to do it. And you're going to put up both hands and say, this just isn't for me, and I can deal with the symptoms that I have on a day-to-day basis. Even though we're really opening ourselves up to this continued chronic inflammation in our body, which ultimately leads to really bad things. So my goal of this podcast today is to talk about what is upsetting our microbiome, what does that mean, and then what is the best way and the easiest way to detox that for not only a better gut health, but systemically trickling down into your cardiovascular system, your metabolic system, your thyroid health, your hormones. Literally, if you were trying to reset anything out of all the programs that we have at Cultured Wellness to take advantage of, the best one, in my opinion, is honestly the gut and liver detox, which this is what I'm going to talk about today is one of the facets that we utilize, but I can tell you that they are all specifically structured to be easy to do when you're ready and in the right mindset. I know that sometimes eliminating certain food groups is hard and it's a choice, and you get fed up enough, to be honest, with how you're feeling, and you're ready to give up certain things and you're ready to kind of change your way of living. I'm not saying that it's so easy that anyone can do it, but you have to be ready and willing. So maybe that's where you are. Maybe you're so fed up with having food aversions and not wanting to go out with friends because you're bloating all the time and you just can't predict when you're going to feel okay. Maybe you're so sick of incredible hormonal, cystic, inflammatory acne that you're just like, what is happening to my systemic body that I cannot even use the best of the best topical stuff to get a hold of this? Maybe you're completely wasted of energy and you just feel like you can't go on like this. And maybe you're getting gaslit by your practitioners like, well, you're a mom and this is just how you feel. Maybe you're suffering from neuroinflammation issues and brain fog, or maybe in your family, you're struggling with kids with ADHD or autism spectrum disorder, and you're wondering what the heck is going on and why we're seeing this at a faster and faster clip. I really want to make this easy, but I really also want to let you know that this is a lifestyle shift, and it's one that I have spent so many years, so much money, so much frustration working on my own body. And now I'm here to share what's actually working for me in real time. First, I'll start by saying that finally, people are researching the fact that the gut microbiome has effect on things like our endocrine system and metabolic diseases, autoimmune issues, like I said, neuroinflammation like Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's dementia, also
the autism spectrum disorders. And we're looking at the effect of environmental toxins on things like cardiovascular disease and early onset asthma and allergies in these little kids. We're looking at the fact that there is heavy metal contamination, so much so in our water. Like if you are drinking tap water, just stop. There are very, very easy alternatives to that. And also stop drinking it out of plastic water bottles as I sit here with electrolytes in a water bottle. But the sooner that we can stop getting these types of things in our body, the sooner that we can start addressing real things like pesticides and the effect on female and male fertility. So really in this podcast outline, I want to look at what toxicity is in the gut, how heavy metals play into it, how environmental toxins play into it, how our endotoxins play into it, and then how we can come up with some good strategies to detox. And your gut microbiome is only as good as the terrain of your body. That's how we really need to think about it. Like this is a terrain and there are so many factors that are going into the health of it. And so yes, gut health is important, but also we need to look at our entire body, and there's different things that go into affecting this terrain. We have a horrendous standard American diet. It's all processed food. We have high sugar, high carbohydrates. We are so stressed. I am reading a book right now called The Relentless Elimination of Hurry, and it's talking about a lot of things, speaking to my soul, but there's a portion of it where it's calling millennials the masters of hurry anxiety and hurry sickness, and how we're so stressed. We think, oh my gosh, literally every day I write in my Slack check-in, like I have an obstacle of I wish I had more time. And it's like, if I had more time, I would fill it with more things. Like I'm not going to spend it de-stressing. And we are kidding ourselves to think that one facial is going to de-stress all the things that we have going on in our lives. That is something that we really minimize, and how much it plays key in our health is wild. Also, we're incredibly sedentary in our lives, especially like right now I'm in Florida. I'm switching up my life. I'm doing something that feels good to me. I'm getting sun exposure in the months where I really struggle. I'm taking my family away from conventionalism. We're homeschooling. We're doing all these things. And I'm literally, without even trying, I wear an Oura ring and I'm getting 20,000 steps in every day. It's just by living life and being with my kids and walking my dog. And we only have one vehicle here, and utilizing walking on the beach. And it's just a different way of life. It's amazing. I really am loving that part. And then we look at this other part of the damage of the microbiome in our terrain, which is high exposure to toxins. Our world, we're getting sicker and sicker despite our advances in technology, because the technology and the toxins that we are putting in our food, in our cleaning products, in our cosmeceuticals, in our makeup, personal care items, our clothing, we have the highest exposure to toxins we've ever had. We are accumulating those toxins in our body and we aren't able to get rid of them, and it's a vicious cycle. What that's doing is we're getting essentially functional damage in changing these bacterial metabolites, and we're losing, like I said, the bacterial diversity in our gut. And the good guys are dying off and the bad guys in some cases are taking over, and it's changing our metabolism and our balance. And honestly, this is just really, really unfortunate, because these cells are no longer able to communicate with each other, and we're then causing systemic disease, brain toxicity, liver toxicity, kidneys, in our gut. And the gut, again, it's driving home. It's environmental exposures, these metabolic interactions that happen because of that, the biomarkers that are set off, and then us basically saying what truly is going on by the functional lab testing that we can do and the symptomology and what we know, and then modulating that environment. So starting with one of the groups of the exogenous toxins I want to talk about is heavy metals. So heavy metals have been around for a long time, and what they're doing in our gut is they're producing this reactive oxygen species, and they're depleting all of our antioxidants to be able to undo that and fight that. Our body is powerful. It has the things that it needs to fight toxins, but when the burden is so high, our body just gives up. For example, glutathione, first of all, our bodies, especially if you're an autoimmune or struggling with this kind of toxic burden, you're burning off glutathione faster than you have it. Things like that are really minimizing the way that our body can fight things off, but our body does want to do right by us. we are losing the enzymes that we need, the protein function, we're compromising the membrane integrity. That is interfering with how we absorb certain nutrients that our body, again, needs to continue on with. There's a lot of evidence that probiotics are really, really good at promoting heavy metal excretion and detoxifying enzymes that are needed to, again, reduce the heavy metal absorption in the gut or convert it to a less toxic form. And then we also have the benefit of probiotics. And I'll tell you guys which one I like during this podcast. We're modifying the structure and function in the microbiota, and we're promoting the production with essential amino acids and these probiotics to create short chain fatty acids. And that's going to really improve our gut function. But when we're not doing that and we're having all this heavy metal accumulation and all these diet composition issues and pH issues, and depending on our age and our gender, we have an increased risk of metabolic disease and allergy and asthma. And there are so many different heavy metals. We can go through that at a different time, but essentially what they're releasing is potentially even causing worse issues and these storms essentially where we're getting things like small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or something called SIBO, which is something that I have been treating on myself. And initially, again, our body, for example, there's something called hydrogen sulfide. And hydrogen sulfide can be produced from endogenous and exogenous sources, and it can improve the metabolism of our cells. But if it gets too abundant, then that's when we start to see a shift in the bad bacteria. And that's where we can start to see, first of all, chronic inflammation go on, and then leading all the way into cancer, neoplasia, and changes of our cells and colon cancers and other cancers in our body, not just that. So when we look at heavy metals and the differences between them, I was saying, I don't think that it's necessary to go through each and every one and tell you what they can cause. But I will tell you briefly that it's going to decrease our immune response. It's going to increase our risk of certain metabolic issues like diabetes. I don't know if you guys know this, but obesity a lot of times is our body's protective mechanism to kind of hold on to these toxins and protect them from going into all of our cells and tissues. And so we're not going to lose that fat no matter how much of a calorie deficit we create or no matter how much of an exercise plan we go on to create that negative deficit. Our body wants to hold on to it because it's protecting ourselves. And actually, as you lose weight and you lose that fat, those toxins are released. And if you are on any sort of semaglutide or anything, you really need to be on a detox protocol. Sorry for the helicopters going by. Again, I'm trying to live my best life out here in Florida and sit on a balcony and record a podcast. So you may have to hear some background noise. Okay, so also things like cadmium. I had a lot of cadmium. I'll kind of share personally what some of my issues were so that you know how we can actually, like, we go back to that assessment and how we're modulating our plans. Cadmium is typically from like smoking or environmental toxins like that. And it's another one that massively increases fat accumulation. We have mercury and methylmercury where we're like, this is potentially a major cause of autism. And where is this mercury coming from? When we look at arsenic and cadmium and lead and mercury, there's a huge relationship. Basically, the take home is in the metabolic changes that happen in the body and how it integrates with the relationship between what's happening within our body and what's happening in response to what our body is being exposed to. So from there, between antibiotic overuse and changing the gut microbiome, heavy metal exposure, all of the pesticides, artificial sweeteners, all the things that we shouldn't be having. Again, there's functional change that leads to these biomarkers that we're having symptoms of obesity to protect our body, diversity loss of this microbiota, which is causing things like inflammatory bowel disease, pathogen invasion, and SIBO. We have signaling molecules causing systemic inflammation in our whole body, colorectal cancers, cardiovascular disease, and neurological disorders. Now, there's other environmental issues other than heavy metals. I'm going to touch on a couple because I think that they're highly relatable to our life. So when we look at BPA-free water bottles, BPA or bisphenol A is a plastic monomer and it's highly used in lots of different things that temporarily hold our food or whatever. this is a huge reproductive toxicant and a neurotoxicant, and it's an obesogen, and it is a large hormone disruptor in the body. And when we think about BPA, this is also something that upregulates the level of akromansia and alters lots of different things in the gut to increase the risk of carcinogen exposure. And carcinogen are cancer-causing things. And so when we look at that, we think, okay, well, I'll get BPA-free products. But the problem is that we are now, with the studies that are coming out, seeing all the other bisphenol products, BPS, BPF, they are also causing toxic exposure to our bodies. And it is no different really than the developmentally toxic issues that we're seeing with BPA. So the best thing that you can do is avoid these microplastics, reheating food in plastic containers, drinking out of water bottles, plastic bottles for our babies. Like really the best thing is glass or some of these other, here you go, get your Stanleys out. And there's a study that came out that shows things like our Starbucks coffee that we potentially could be getting every morning. A cup that's made out of paper or cardboard is going to leak water right through it if there's not a coated plastic on the inside. And when you put that hot water or that hot beverage into that plastic, immediately you're suspending all of these microplastics and nanoplastics, and then you're eating them every single day. That is a massive issue with our gut microbiome. We have phthalates. These are things in our clothing, our detergents, our personal care products, babies' toys, medical equipment. They're vaporized in dust particles. They're in our food and our beverages, and they're leaching into our body from everything in our environment. The more that you can minimize the dermal absorption, the IV absorption, I know that inhalation is hard, but the more that we can minimize these things, the better. I will also tell you that there have been changes seen with the Hep B vaccine showing that that is giving us phthalate exposure, and that early life, that is changing our gut microbiome. And I will share with you personally, and I promise I will share at some point my own family's personal story, but that was what affected my son and led us into a spectrum disorder that luckily through my own discovery and help from people that I have found to help charge this cause of healing his body have undone these effects. But if you don't know, and no one hands you a playbook when your child gets injured from things. If you don't know, it's a desperate place to be, and you can lean on Western medicine doctors that don't know these things and not help your child and actually make things worse. Knowledge is power, right? Now on to the forever chemicals. There's things like POP, the polychlorinated bisphenols. The POPs are usually found in organic compounds, pesticide types of things, DDT. A lot of us were around when DDT was still used, and it was causing massive problems on our nervous system, reproductive and immune health, definitely increasing our risk of cancer. When we look at things like PFAS, this is in our nonstick cookware, food packaging. Like when nonstick cookware came out, it was like, wow, hallelujah. Stain resistant carpets, like when you have little kids and you're redoing your house, every single piece of furniture I had, they asked me if I wanted it to have stain resistance on it. And I was like, no, pick something that is durable and not white, because I don't want all of these forever chemicals leaching into my children and myself for that matter, and causing this disruption and this expression of the little tight junction proteins and creating these hyperactive inflammatory responses that then just causes, again, this incredible cascade of inflammation in our bodies. Pesticides are a whole other thing that we are still massively disrupting our bodies with. Glyphosates, my functional lab testing came back with glyphosate off the chart. And I was actually really surprised because I eat mostly organic. I wash my fruits and vegetables. I do eat out some, but the fact that this was such a high level in me, I either had a recent exposure or I am getting some sort of major chronic exposure. And so I'm really looking forward to redoing this test and seeing where those levels are. But this has such a massive effect on our beneficial bacteria. And when we are getting all this harmful bacteria in the driver's seat, this is going to create massive dysbiosis, and it's going to impact, again, our metabolic function. I'm repeating this because I just want to drive home like what this is doing. making us more susceptible to things like diabetes and insulin issues and desensitization of those things. Barrier function, we're going to get that leaky gut, that increased gut permeability. So when we have these injuries and these little gaps of our gut lining, then we're leaking these issues into the rest of our body. And then we're causing inflammation. We're causing these downstream cascades. And we're ultimately giving ourselves this autoimmune disease where then we're told our body is attacking itself, which is not true. Our impact on this microbial diversity is really a general marker of health. Glyphosates are really known to decrease the diversity and lead to things like obesity and inflammatory bowel disease and diabetes. Now, also mycotoxins are huge. Mycotoxins come from things like mold or different types of fungi, and this can come from our environment, our housing. I love this mold company in Michigan that we use. I'll try to put it in the show notes. I think it's called Mold Pro, something like that. But they came to our house when we redid it, and I made sure that when we renovated our house, that there was nothing that leaked while we were gone and grew different substances behind the walls. I'm pretty sure in our rental house, my daughter and I were both exposed to mycotoxins. I have either detoxed them at this point or wasn't, but I am still waiting on her testing because she's having some chronic urticaria symptoms, and skin issues and chronic inflammation is giving you signals that there's something going on in your gut. I have blood studies now that show that she is very, very, very sensitive to gluten. So high that the functional practitioner that drew her blood was like, oh my gosh, you can't diagnose obviously celiac without a colonoscopy, but the high level that they're at shows that she's really, really sensitive to that and a little dairy and at least staying away from casein. So it's really looking at every little clue to help give us the direction to come up with a plan for minimizing all of this dysbiosis. So what are the chronic effects of mold toxicity? Kidney and liver damage, again, reproductive and developmental toxicity. There's a lot of hormone disruption with these as well. There's neurotube defects that we see in infants that are passed on. There is the chronic health issues that we see in all of them, immune suppression, susceptibility to infections, and also the neurotoxicity and neurodegenerative disorders. And specifically speaking about the gut, we can see that there's, again, the leaky gut barrier function and the cascade of all those cytokines that are happening and causing the whole systemic issue. We want to just brush on endotoxins too, because endotoxemia and metabolic endotoxemia is essentially something in the blood that is toxins. And lipopolysaccharides, or LPS, is one of the biggest ones that we see. These are large molecules found in the outer membrane of gram-negative bacteria. And usually these are contained in the gut, but like we've talked about, there's a lot of factors that cause these to leak into the bloodstream. And then what happens is this is just setting us up for this whole inflammatory picture and creating the whole metabolic syndrome. So we're going to see heart disease, lipid issues, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, dementia, cancer, polycystic ovarian disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which I don't think we call it that anymore. The whole concept of LPS, I actually had such a high level of that, and makes a lot of sense because it messes with your mental health. It messes with your autoimmune issues. It causes hormone issues. That's something that we can identify on functional lab testing as well. Now, we can address these things many different ways. Like I mentioned, we do functional lab testing, urine analysis, hair analysis, blood analysis, and we can gather a whole bunch of ideas on how to treat these things effectively. The strategies in terms of how we're going to mitigate these processes are reducing our toxic load, avoiding re-exposure, being aware and making the changes that we need to in our lives to minimize what we're continuing to put on our skin or continuing to clean with or inhale. We also want to improve the overall terrain and de-stress our lives. It's easier said than done, but all of those things, get an adequate amount of sleep. I was also reading a book that was talking about the history of time. And when Thomas Edison came out with the light bulb, people used to go to bed when the sun went down because there was nothing else to do. And then the light bulb allowed us to stay up later and mimic that circadian rhythm of being awake and having light. People used to sleep on average 11 hours a night. Now people are struggling to get 6 or 7 hours. 6 or 7 hours is now considered good. By my Oura ring, I see that I'm about 7 hours when I really always thought that I was getting more than that. But we need sleep to reset our bodies. It is when our bodies repair itself, and it's when we release growth hormone. And there's such important factors that happen during certain aspects of our sleep cycle. I do love my Oura ring to just see what's going on and how much I'm getting of what, to really be able to tweak, oh, maybe I shouldn't be drinking alcohol, or maybe I should move my body more. Maybe I should lay off the screens an hour before bed or read, or does my PEMF impact that? So it's been kind of cool. And then supporting the microbiome by different things that I'm going to talk to you about, and improving your diet as well. For me, I've uncovered a massive sensitivity to gluten. So I have completely eliminated that, and I've been gluten-free for about 7 weeks now, almost 2 months. And I have definitely seen massive benefits. The last time I had gluten was on Christmas Day, and that was after being gluten-free strictly. I've always tried to minimize it, but it's you can't be 1 foot in the door and 1 foot out. You have to minimize it, because if you are sensitive to gluten, they're now seeing that even just one exposure to gluten can affect you for up to 6 months. That exposure to gluten on Christmas really threw me into massive bloating, discomfort. I could tell that I didn't feel good. So I was like, that's enough for me. I can see the benefit now, and I'm just going to stay on this track. And it's really not that hard. Okay, so what can we do? Well, we are seeing massive improvements of probiotics in terms of the gut microbiome. So we're looking at strains that can facilitate us to excrete heavy metals. Like I said, change them to something less toxic. And we have Faecalibacterium prausnitzii, which is one that is really, really helpful at detoxifying arsenic. We have Akkermansia, which is improving the gut barrier function and promoting secretions of mucin in the colon. And we have Bifidobacterium lactoplantobacillus, extracting heavy metals. So we really want to look at a probiotic with purpose. I love the microbiome spore-based megaspore probiotic. This is really important because it's doing things intentionally to support protein digestion, produces B vitamins. It's supporting immune function. It is taking these heavy metals and helping them out of our body. I love a probiotic in general, but you want one that has such purposeful support of what your body needs. And that's why spore-based probiotics are the best. So I love ours. Also, another thing that I've been using is immunoglobulins. So these are a type of protein that's found in the blood, and they're very important for your body's immune system. They're also known as antibodies, and they're produced by the immune cells, and they neutralize things like bacteria and virus and toxins. And this is really key too for someone who has something like SIBO and they can't even tolerate a probiotic. That used to be me. I literally could take a third of a spore-based probiotic, even the spore-based ones. I could take 0 of the other stuff. It made me bloated. And if you're experiencing that, it would be really helpful for you to get something like the Mega Mucosa that we have on board with all these immunoglobulins, because then it's starting to repair and promote your immune system to be able to heal that gut lining, to then start to repopulate these powerful probiotics. When we look at the role of what this is doing, is it's really helping us maintain the immune system, really essential for gut health. It's protective against pathogens, especially IgA, that plays a really protective role of the mucosal surfaces in the GI tract, and prevents things from invading. Our gut is our first line of defense. Also maintaining that balance, reducing inflammation, and creating, like I said, that barrier function and creating an intact barrier. If you don't have a gut that's intact, no matter what you do, one thing that can hit you, you'll go back to square one. So then what does it look like to detox? We've talked now about how probiotics can really help and how the immunoglobulins can help. Let's look at what detox looks like. So we have this oxidative activation, and we have the glutathione, the sulfation, the glucuronidation, and basically all of that is essentially phase 1 and phase 2, which is activating and conjugating the toxins. So it's getting them out of the cell, and now they're like, woo, we're going into the blood. Well, that's all great and dandy, but if you're just getting them into the blood and we're not telling them where to go next, they can either go back into the cells or go to different places in the other tissues. And so it's really important for us to then go to phase 3, which is filtration and transport of the toxins. And that is saying, hey, get in the liver so that we can get you into the small intestine and eliminate you, or get into the kidneys so that we can urinate you out. And so in a healthy state, toxins are processed and removed from the cells and the organs with all these enzymes, all these transporter proteins, and they leave the body either by the skin, the urine, or the feces. How do we do that? Sounds like a lot, right? So far, we have you on our mega spore biotic. That's the best thing. And the mega mucosa. I love our total gut restoration. It also has the prebiotic too to help really put that fire on the good bacteria and repopulating all the good stuff. And now we're moving into my favorite new love, the advanced push catch system, which is a detox system that not only incorporates the phase 1 and phase 2, which is what a lot of detox programs can do. But like I said, now we have phase 3, and that's the one that's catching all those toxins and then eliminating them through the skin, the urine, and the feces. So phase 1 and phase 2 is called the push. So advanced push catch. So the push is phase 1 and phase 2, pushing them. And phase 3, catching them. Healthy bile flow is just supporting that movement of the toxins into where they need to be, liver, kidneys, and binding everything so that they can be removed and prevent the recirculation of them. There's different ingredients in this system. So we have a couple that you keep in the fridge, a couple that you can keep in the cabinet. And so every morning I take my stuff, and it's very, very simple, but I'm going to tell you what each of these things is. So the liver sauce, the names are so funny to me. The liver sauce is creating that bile flow generation, that immunotolerance and mast cell stabilization. There's things like quercetin, luteolin, DIM. And then we have our NRF2 upregulators, which are super important in the immune system. I just recently read a book called The Immunity Code, and he talked so much about NRF2 and AMPK as pathways for being really, really important in immune function. And then we have something called phosphatidylcholine, which is very important to be able to support the whole process of the NRF2 and the transport from getting things into the bile. The role of the binder that then happens is kind of binding those toxins, preventing the absorption of them, and facilitating the excretion. The binder you take 30 minutes after you take the others. So you'll take the liver sauce, you take the kidney care, you take the liposomal glutathione and the membrane mend, and then 30 minutes later you take the ultra binder. The ultra binder is not just charcoal. I think a lot of people think, oh, I'll just grab some charcoal. It's also a zeolite, which is one of the things I used to detox my son from heavy metals when he was struggling. IMD, chitosan, acacia gum, that keeps you from getting constipated, and aloe. And then another thing that you can add is digestive bitters. Bitters X, I think I may even talk about this as like a supplement Saturday soon as a standalone. It's going to stimulate digestive enzymes. So anyone who's having trouble breaking down your food and having a lot of that GI upset, bitters is amazing because it's liver function support, it's gallbladder activity health, it's gut motility, it's balancing the gut flora, and it's super anti-inflammatory. I see so many women that end up getting their gallbladders out because they hit that perimenopausal stage. Their bile flow decreases, their GI system is upset, their liver isn't functioning properly, and they really, really need Bitters X to keep everything flowing and keep everything detoxing, amongst also probably needing to be hormonally optimized. But bitters is affecting pathways that, again, oxidative stress causes NRF2 to dissociate from certain things, and then it's helping, again, detox. It's giving enzymes to be able to support all of that detox. Also, nitric oxide supplementation is really, really important. This is really important in signaling a lot of the pathological processes and physiological and really helping to act as a signaling molecule to support all of this stuff. When we have nitric oxide, it's a vasodilator, so it's going to increase the blood flow. It's going to facilitate the removal of waste and toxins, really support the immune system, give us oxidative stress modulation and neutralizing free radicals, also enzymatic activity. The body needs these enzymes to be able to detoxify harmful substances. And then from a diet standpoint, you really do want to implement some sort of time-restricted feeding because your body does need that rest to be able to properly process all of these functions. With one caveat, if you aren't sleeping well, you may need to take a break at intermittent fasting. You're fasting while you're sleeping. So as long as you make sure that your last meal is 2 hours before you go to bed, and then you can break your fast when you wake up and you're hungry in the morning. That is one caveat that I will say. If you're not sleeping well, fasting might not be for you. You really need to increase your fiber, which especially in those menopausal patients, but for everyone, make sure that you are getting the macronutrient density and diversity. You want protein, carbs, and fats in the appropriate ratio of each for your body. You want polyphenol intake. You want to make sure that you're getting those berries. You want to make sure that you're getting omega-3. That is so important, especially again in menopause. Obviously, I'm a little passionate about people going through menopause symptoms. Get rid of things like chlorine cleaners, antimicrobial products. If you're that person using hand sanitizer 20 times a day, you need to knock it off. Get a little dirty because that microbiome is what allows your body to continue to process. Get a dog. One of the best things you can do for your children is to get a dog. They're very, very good at creating that microbiome balance and giving your body the microorganisms that you need. Protect your body from EMFs as much as you can. Obviously, we talked about stress reduction. I am a huge fan of air purifiers in your environment. We have several in our house. On each floor, we have a big air doctor, and my kids have one in their rooms. And get water purifiers. Do not drink tap water. I cannot drive that home enough. And eat organic as much as you can. It's not an all or nothing game. There's foods that are dirtier than others. You can look that up, which ones are the most important to get organic, and then sure that you're washing them really well. If you're like, holy crap, that was a lot of information. This is where you need to start. If this is resonating with you at all and you're like, I do need to detox, like I want to start over and I want to have something that's easy to implement into my life, literally just come in and we can walk you through the gut and liver detox. Even by just doing the advanced push catch and doing the food sensitivity testing and the gut microbiome testing that we offer with that program, it's all wrapped in. You are able to have a heavy look at what your unique factors are, what changes you need to make, and then there's sustainable changes where you can implement this detox system almost into a daily way of life for yourself. I cycle it in a slightly different way than what the protocol suggests, and we cater that to our patients as well. But every single day I'm using these probiotics. I'm using the mucosa. I'm using the prebiotics now. Finally, I'm able to tolerate them, and I'm rebuilding my gut. I can't even tell you the last time that I have been bloated like I was on Christmas over the last 6 weeks. And that was like an almost 5-time-a-week occurrence for me. And I would just go to bed with a stomach ache and wake up the next day and it would be significantly better. And then I would be right back into the process of re-inflaming everything. Despite my best efforts, I have lived a healthy life, my whole life basically, but I really needed all of these tools pulled together to really be able to look at what is going on for me personally and what do I need to get real about and get out of my life so that I can heal. My systemic inflammation is so much less. My health and my energy are so much better. I'm finally shedding that little bit of adipose tissue. My cellulite looks better. I'm able to build lean muscle. And of course, it's not just this, it's a comprehensive approach. But if you were starting anywhere, starting with an advanced push catch detox, you cannot go wrong. So I hope this was helpful. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope that I did not bore you too much with the scientific mumbo jumbo psychobabble kind of stuff, but I want to get you guys healthy. I want to share the things that are working for me finally. And this was just a punch to the gut, and hopefully we can let that radiate to the rest of our bodies. Take care.
And that's a wrap on another enriching episode of the Curated Beauty Podcast. If today's conversations resonated with you, I urge you to share it with someone you believe could benefit from it. Let's spread the beauty, knowledge, and empowerment far and wide. For more in-depth resources, information about who we are, or if you're interested in becoming a patient or training directly with me or one of my team, visit our website at beautyculturespa.com. Don't forget to stay connected with us on Instagram for all the latest updates, behind the scenes, and beauty wisdom. Follow us at beautyculture.medspa and at B Cultured Wellness. That's the letter B, Cultured Wellness. Thank you for being with us today. Keep curating your beauty both inside and out. Until next time.